Hello everyone. I'm Claire from Susan's family. Today, I'll teach you how to make a sweater. From the Feng series, Grid Saddle Shoulder Sweater. For this electronic tutorial, you can search for it on our website. This sweater consists of 6 parts: the collar, the shoulder parts, the body, the hem, and the sleeves. We start by knitting the collar from top to bottom. Then the shoulder parts, the body, and the hem. After completing these sections, we will pick up stitches to knit the sleeves separately. The sweater comes in different sizes, but the knitting method is mostly the same, only the stitch count and round numbers vary slightly. This tutorial uses the small size as an example. Let's start with the method for knitting the collar. The collar is knitted using a method that combines knitting and casting on as you go. To knit the single rib stitch pattern in the round, you will need to use 4 straight needles simultaneously. The stitch techniques used include purl stitches and knit stitches. Now, please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting method. First, we start with a beginning chain. For clarity, I will demonstrate using 1 strand of cotton yarn. When you actually knit, you should use 2 strands of yarn held together. Let's take a look. A yarn ball has 2 ends, one from the center and one from the outside. You can knit with these 2 ends held together. Alternatively, you can use the outer ends of 2 separate yarn balls for knitting. For specific yarn details, color schemes, and needle sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. Make a slip knot with the yarn. And place it on the needle. This stitch will be worked as a knit stitch. Pick up another straight needle with your right hand. Place it below the yarn. Insert into the loop. Knit 1 purl stitch. And slide the loop onto the left needle. Place the right needle above the thread. Insert between the 2 loops. Knit 1 knit stitch. And slide the loop onto the left needle. Continue by placing the right needle below the yarn. Insert between the 2 loops. Knit 1 purl stitch. And slide the loop onto the left needle. The starting row alternates between 1 purl stitch and 1 knit stitch, working downwards alternately. When the thread is above, start with a knit stitch. When the thread is below, start with a purl stitch. Continue knitting down to the required number of stitches. Everyone, take a look. This is what it looks like after completing the starting row. In actual knitting, there will be more loops. Pay attention to preventing the loops on both sides from falling off. Start with the first round. First, roughly divide the stitches on the needle evenly among 3 needles. Now they are all divided. Arrange the needles into a triangle shape. Make sure the bottom doesn't twist. Start knitting from the position of the yarn tail. Take out the fourth needle. Since we are knitting in the round, the charts are always read from right to left. The first stitch is a horizontal symbol, which means a purl stitch. Place the right needle underneath the yarn tail. Insert into the first loop. Knit 1 purl stitch. This is the junction between two needles. Pull the yarn tail tight. Otherwise, the finished product won't look as neat. The yarn tail at the starting point also needs to be pulled tight. The second stitch is a blank symbol, which means a knit stitch. Wrap the yarn underneath the right needle. Knit 1 knit stitch. Then wrap the yarn over the right needle again, and knit 1 purl stitch. Then knit 1 knit stitch. For this round, it's 1 purl stitch, 1 knit stitch, alternating as you go. Remember to yarn over before each stitch, or you'll end up with extra stitches. When you reach the junction, continue following the pattern. Pay attention to the junction of the needles, and make sure to tighten the first stitch. Continue knitting downward. Keep going until you finish the loops. On the right side of the yarn tail, now, look, we have reached the position of the yarn tail. The first round is now completed. Next, we'll start the second round. Just like the previous round, it's alternating between purl and knit stitches. The first stitch is a purl stitch symbol. Purl this stitch. For the second stitch, it's a knit stitch symbol, so knit this stitch. Besides referring to the chart, you can also follow the texture of the piece. For the next stitch, if it forms a tile unit shape, purl 1 stitch. If it forms a braid shape, knit 1 stitch. Continue alternating between knit and purl stitches. Finish this round following this pattern. Pay attention to tightening the first stitch at the junction. This completes the second round. Follow this method for each subsequent round. You can follow the texture or refer to the chart. Keep going until you reach the corresponding round number in the chart. Now, I'll show you how to count rounds using this small sample. On the surface of the piece, there are rows of braids. One braid represents one round. The lowest braid is formed by the starting chain. Start counting upwards from the braid at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus, the loops on the straight needle also count as one round. So here, we have completed 6 rounds. Up to this point, the method for knitting the collar is complete. Next, we will learn the method for knitting the shoulder parts. The shoulder parts are divided into section 1. Sections 2 and 3, along with section 1, make up these 3 parts. Start by knitting section 1. Let's look at the finished product. Section 1 of the shoulder parts continues from the collar. It is divided into 4 parts, left and right sleeve shoulders, and front and back pieces. Here, the left and right sides of the fabric are determined based on how it will be worn. First, knit back and forth separately for the left and right sleeve shoulders. Then pick up stitches on the side of the sleeve shoulders. Make the back piece and the front piece separately. Note that the chart shows what you see on the right side while knitting. Therefore, when knitting back and forth, the wrong side should be worked with corresponding stitches. The new stitch techniques used include lifted stitch, double stitch, yarn over stitch, lifted stitch 3-in-1, K2 tog, and SPO. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting method. First, identify the corresponding positions for the shoulder seams of the left and right sleeves, and the front and back pieces. Let's start with the front piece. Cut a longer piece of yarn tail. Thread the needle with it directly on the right side of the yarn tail. For the front piece, place the loops on hold. Pass the darning needle from right to left through the loops on the left knitting needle. Slip the loops off. The specific stitch counts are marked on the chart. The swatch stitch count is random. After completing, remove the darning needle. Tie the 2 yarn tails into a slipknot. The holding loops belong to the front piece. Count down the corresponding number of stitches from there. Transfer them to this knitting needle. This is the right shoulder of the sleeve. Leave it unworked for now. Pay attention to prevent the knitting needle from slipping. Then place the corresponding number of stitches on hold for the back piece. Move the remaining loops to this knitting needle. This is the left shoulder of the sleeve. Next, work on the left sleeve shoulder. Start with row 1. Work this row on the right side. The end of the thread is on the right side. Refer to the chart. The first 2 stitches are knit symbols. Work 2 knit stitches. Then, work 1 purl stitch, alternate with 1 knit stitch. Finish this row. Note that the last stitch is a knit symbol. You also need to work it as a knit stitch. That completes the first row. On the bottom of the needle, place a marker on any chain. This marks the position of the first round. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can use a paperclip or safety pin as a substitute. The side where you place the marker is the right side of the piece. Continue to work row 2. Work this row on the wrong side. Hold the wrong side of the piece facing you. Watch the chart from left to right. The first stitch is a purl symbol. Here you work the corresponding stitch. Work a knit stitch. Next is a lifted stitch symbol. Here you follow the texture and work the corresponding lifted stitch. The piece has a purl texture. Place the yarn tail above the right needle. Slip the loop from the left needle without working it, moving from bottom to top. Now there are 2 loops on the right needle. It's equivalent to working 1 yarn over stitch and 1 slip stitch. This chain is now complete. Next, work 1 knit stitch. Then work 1 lifted stitch. Place the yarn tail above the right needle. Slip the loop from the left needle without working it. Another lifted stitch is now complete. Continue with 1 knit stitch. Let's take a look at the piece. Aside from the loops at the beginning and end, the remaining loops are all lifted stitches worked in the purl stitch texture positions. Continue downward following this pattern to finish this row. Pay attention, the last stitch is a knit stitch. Row 2 is now complete. Proceed to work row 3. This row is worked from the right side. Flip the piece over. The chart is read from right to left. The first stitch is a knit stitch. Next for a lifted stitch. At the same time, pick up these 2 loops and work them together as 1 knit stitch. Then work 1 purl stitch. Continue for the lifted stitch. Pick up these 2 strands together and work a knit stitch. Work a purl stitch in the purl stitch position. Finish this row. Pay attention, the last stitch is a knit stitch. Row 3 is now complete. Next, work on row 4. This row is worked on the wrong side. Work the stitch techniques correspond to the chart. The first stitch is a knit stitch. Then work a lifted stitch in the purl stitch position. Work a knit stitch in the knit stitch position. Finish this row. The last stitch is a knit stitch. Row 4 is now complete. Continue with row 5. This row is worked on the right side. The first stitch is a knit stitch. Then at the lifted stitch position, work a knit stitch by picking up these 2 threads simultaneously. Work a purl stitch in the purl stitch position. Finish this row. The last stitch is a knit stitch. Row 5 is now complete. Let's take a look at the fabric piece. On the wrong side, knit stitches and lifted stitches are worked. On the right side, work purl and knit stitches. We call this pattern the brioche stitch pattern. Let me show you how to count rows here. After finishing this row on the right side, start counting from the chain above the stitch marker. 1 chain represents 2 rows. 1, 2. In this sample swatch, there are 2 chains, which means 4 rows, plus 1 more row on the needle. The sample swatch has a total of 5 rows. Following this method, refer to the pattern chart to knit the brioche stitch pattern until just before the increase placement. I'll demonstrate the technique using this sample swatch. The method for increasing stitches at the increase point. The row numbers for the increase placement vary with different sizes. In my sample, the row numbers are random. I'm only demonstrating the technique. Start by working the even numbered rows. Work this row on the wrong side of the piece. The technique is the same as before. That is, except for the first and last stitch. Work a lifted stitch in the purl stitch positions. And work a knit stitch in the knit stitch positions. Once you finish this row, this row is complete. Continue to the next row. Work this row on the right side of the piece. Start by knitting the brioche stitch pattern, in the same way as before. Continue until you reach just before the increase position. Now you've reached this point. At this lifted stitch position, work a lifted stitch 3 in 1. Insert the right needle into these 2 loops. And knit 1 stitch. Do not release the loops from the left needle yet. Work 1 yarn over stitch, which means threading the yarn tail from front to back over the right needle. Then continue to knit 1 stitch in these 2 loops. Release the loops from the left needle. The lifted stitch 3 in 1 is now complete. Continue working the brioche stitch pattern below until you reach just before the next increase position. Now you've reached this lifted stitch position. Work a lifted stitch 3 in 1. Insert the right needle into these 2 loops. And knit 1 stitch. Work 1 yarn over stitch and 1 knit stitch. Release the loops from the left needle. The lifted stitch 3 in 1 is now complete. Continue with the brioche stitch pattern. Finish this row. Ending with 1 knit stitch. This odd numbered row is now complete. Move on to the next even numbered row. Turn the work piece to the wrong side. Start with 1 knit stitch. Then work lifted stitches and knit stitches until you reach just before the next increase position. Now we're at this position. Pick up these 3 loops and work 1 lifted stitch, 1 knit stitch, and 1 more lifted stitch. Then continue following this method to finish this row. End with 1 knit stitch. This even-numbered row is now complete. This is the technique for working at the increase position. Continue following this method to finish the remaining part of the left shoulder. End on the wrong side. Let's take a look. This is what the left shoulder of the swatch looks like when it's completed. Next, we need to pick up stitches along the side. I'll demonstrate the stitch picking method using this swatch. Hold the wrong side of the fabric piece facing you, with the knitting needle pointing to the right, and the yarn tail at the top right. Let's take a look at the fabric piece. Along the top edge of the fabric piece, there are small horizontal knots. Between every 2 knots, there are 2 braids. These correspond to 2 rows of the fabric piece. Picking up stitches involves picking up these braids. Take out a longer circular needle. Continue picking up stitches with this yarn tail. Hold one end of the circular needle with your right hand and hang the yarn. Place the right knitting needle underneath the yarn tail. Using the purl stitch method, insert from the bottom up into the first braid on the side. Yarn over and draw through. This is the first stitch. Continue using the purl stitch method. Insert into the braid on the left side. Yarn over and draw through. This is the second stitch. Follow this method to pick up 2 more stitches. Then skip 1 braid. Actually, pick up 4 more stitches. Generally, for every 4 stitches picked up, skip 1 braid. Try to pick up the required number of stitches as evenly as possible. Refer to the chart for the exact stitch count. In my sample, there are fewer stitches. And this completes the picking up of stitches. On the circular needle, place a stitch marker to mark. Then, place the front piece's held loops. Place them onto this circular needle. Do not knit with this circular needle for now. Temporarily keep the yarn tail as is. Up to this point, the method for knitting the left shoulder part of section 1 has been explained. Now, continue knitting the right shoulder part of section 1, with the right side of the piece facing you. Take out a new yarn tail. And continue knitting with the straight needle. First, join the yarn and work row 1. Tie a slip knit with the yarn tail. Insert the right needle into the first loop. Pull the slip knit through. Knit 1 knit stitch. Adjust the size of the loop. Make sure the knot does not show on the right side of the piece. The joining is now complete. This is the first stitch. Continue to knit alternately with knit stitches and purl stitches. Finish this row. The last stitch is a knit stitch. The first row is now complete. On this side, below the knitting needle, place a marker on any chain to mark it. The method for knitting the remaining part of the right shoulder is the same as for the left shoulder. After completing the corresponding row numbers, use a shorter circular needle to pick up the corresponding number of stitches along the side. After completing, leave a 10 cm yarn tail and cut the yarn. Place a marker. Then transfer the unworked stitches from the back piece to this circular needle. As you can see, this is what the right shoulder of section 1 looks like after completion. Next, we will knit the back piece of section 1. Start with row 1. Hold the back side of the fabric piece with the right side toward you and the left shoulder on the right side. Start with this shorter circular needle. Pick up and knit from the left end. Insert the right needle into the first braid on the side of the left shoulder. Pull through the slip knit. Adjust the loop size. Make sure the knot is not visible on the right side of the fabric. The joining is now complete. This is the first stitch. Next, insert the right needle into the braid on the left side. Yarn over and pull through. This is the second stitch. Continue by picking up approximately every fourth stitch, leaving a braid in between each set of stitches, and knit these stitches, picking up the corresponding number of stitches along the left shoulder side. After completing this, you will reach the loops reserved for the back piece. Place a marker on the right needle to mark this point. Then take the other end of the circular needle with your left hand. Refer to the chart. Alternate between the corresponding number of purl and knit stitches until you reach just before the marker on the left side. Now that you've reached this point, the loops reserved for the back piece are completed. Continue picking up loops on the left side, and follow the chart to knit the corresponding number of stitches. In my sample, the stitch count is random here, so it's not for reference. After completing this, stop knitting. You have now finished the first row. Next, work row 2. Have the wrong side of the piece facing you? The first stitch needs to be a double stitch. Regardless of whether the texture of the loop here is from a purl or knit stitch. Place the right needle below the yarn. Pick up the first stitch from bottom to top without knitting it. Then pull the yarn tail tight backward. You can see that above the right needle, a knot formed by 2 loops appears. This double stitch is now complete. Next, refer to the chart and work the corresponding stitch. If you need to work a purl stitch, bring the yarn to above the right needle and purl 1 stitch. If you need to work a knit stitch, simply insert into the loop and knit the stitch. In my sample, the stitches are worked randomly, so they are not for reference. Continue to follow the chart and work the corresponding stitches, or follow the texture to work the stitches. Continue until just before the stitch marker on the left side. Now you've reached this position. Continue to refer to the chart and work the corresponding number of stitches. Then stop. Row 2 is now complete. Next, work row 3. Turn the workpiece. Start with 1 double stitch. Then refer to the chart and work the corresponding stitches. Let's take a look at the workpiece. You can find the double stitch on the left side. This is where you have 2 loops forming a knot. Work down until just before this knot position. Now you've reached this position. At the same time, pick up these 2 loops and work the corresponding stitches. In my sample, the stitch pattern is random here. Then continue to refer to the chart and work the corresponding number of stitches. Then stop. Row 3 is now complete. Continue with row 4. Have the wrong side of the piece facing you? Start with 1 double stitch. Then follow the chart to work the corresponding stitches, or work according to the texture, all the way to the left side. Just before this double stitch. Now you've reached this position. At the same time, pick up the 2 loops of this knot. Follow the chart to work the corresponding stitches. Then continue following the chart and work the corresponding number of stitches, then stop. Row 4 is now complete. Next, start row 5. This row requires working the lace pattern. For different sizes, the order of stitches will vary. I will demonstrate with the small size sample. For larger sizes, you can watch the video first and learn all the stitch techniques before following the chart to work. Have the right side of the piece facing you? Start with 1 double stitch. Then work 3 knit stitches. You can check the texture below. The purl stitch on the left side should be the last loop of this group of purl stitches. Work 1 yarn over stitch. Then work 1 right leaning decrease. We will refer to this as a SPO from now on. For the right needle, start with a knit stitch, and slip the next stitch on the left side without working it. Then work 1 knit stitch. Next, use the left needle to pick up the slipped stitch. Pass it over the stitch on the left and slip it off. 1 SPO is now completed. Check the texture below. The right loop is above the left loop. Work 1 knit stitch. Then work 1 left leaning decrease. We will refer to this as a K2 tog from now on. With the right needle, go from left to right. Pass through both of these loops at the same time. Work 1 knit stitch. This completes the K2 tog. Check the texture below. The left loop is above the right loop. Then work 1 yarn over stitch, followed by 3 knit stitches. Let's take a look at the piece. Consider these stitches as one pattern group. Pay attention while knitting. The first yarn over stitch always corresponds to the last loop of the purl stitch group. From the previous row, I'll demonstrate another pattern group. Start with 1 yarn over stitch. Then work 1 SPO. With the right needle, slip the first stitch without working it. Then work 1 knit stitch. And use the left needle to pick up the slipped stitch, covering it over the stitch on the left. That completes one spo. Continue with 1 knit stitch and 1 K2 tog. The right needle goes from left to right, passing through both loops at the same time. Work 1 knit stitch, which completes the K2 tog. Next, work 1 yarn over stitch, followed by 3 knit stitches. Another pattern group is now complete. Continue following this method, repeating this pattern group until you reach just before the double stitch on the left side. My sample has reached this point. Refer to the chart and work 1 yarn over stitch, then work 1 spo stitch. Pay attention while knitting. Make sure to pick up both strands of the knot at the same time for the stitch. Continue referring to the chart to complete the corresponding stitches. This completes the 5th row. Continue with the 6th row. Turn the workpiece. Start with 1 double stitch. Then work purl stitches. In the position of the yarn over from the previous row, directly pick up this strand and work a purl stitch, forming a hole underneath. Continue working purl stitches downward until you reach just before the double stitch on the left side. Now at this position, continue working the corresponding number of purl stitches. Then stop. Row 6 is now complete. The method for knitting the remaining part of the back piece is relatively simple. On odd numbered rows, follow the stitch pattern in the chart, or refer to the texture pattern while performing short rows using the German short row technique on both sides. That is, start each row with 1 double stitch. Then work the required number of stitches before stopping. When you reach the position of the slip stitch from the previous row, pick up both loops of the double stitch at the same time and work the corresponding stitch pattern. This is the method for German short row knitting. After completing this, the fabric piece will form an arc at the short row turning point. Pay attention while knitting. The 2 sets of patterns should be staggered. Make sure not to knit in the wrong position. Continue following this pattern as you move down. Refer to the chart to finish the back piece. Next, we will knit the front piece for section 1. It is divided into two parts, the left shoulder part and the right shoulder part. Let's start with the right shoulder part. I will continue to demonstrate using this sample. Place the front side of the front piece facing you. First, use this longer circular needle. On the left side. At the right shoulder part. Pick up the corresponding number of stitches along this edge. After completing this, you will reach the yarn loops reserved on the front piece. Pick up the first loop and knit one stitch. This completes the first row. For the remaining part of the right shoulder part of the front piece, the knitting method is similar to that of the back piece. On odd rows, follow the chart to knit the same stitches. On even rows, work it on the wrong side with stitches corresponding to those in the chart. Meanwhile, use the German short row method for shaping at both sides. On the left side, pick up the reserved loops from the front piece each time. Work one stitch when turning. All the stitch techniques required have been demonstrated before. Please refer to the previous demonstrations. Follow the chart to complete them. Once everything is completed, leave a tail of about 10 centimeters and cut the yarn. Here you can see, this is what the right shoulder part of the front piece looks like after completion. Next, we will knit the left shoulder part of the front piece. Before starting, first transfer the loops from the circular needle to the straight needle. Transfer them to the right needle. Continue until one loop before the right side of the stitch marker on the left. This is what it looks like after transferring the loops. Next, we will work row 1. This row is on the right side of the piece. Use the previously left yarn tail to start knitting directly. Refer to the chart. The first stitch is the slip stitch symbol. The method for this slip stitch is slightly different. With the right needle, pick up the first loop directly. Simply slip it without knitting. Then, remove the stitch marker. Follow the chart and knit the corresponding number of stitches. Then stop knitting. Row 1 is now completed. Continue with row 2. Turn the workpiece. Start with one double stitch. Then, follow the chart to knit the corresponding stitch pattern. Complete the corresponding number of stitches. Then stop knitting. Row 2 is now completed. Next, we move on to the left shoulder part of the front piece. The remaining part is knit using a similar method to the right shoulder part. Only the position of the short rows is symmetrical. Refer to the previous demonstration. Follow the chart to complete them. Do not cut the yarn after completion. Now, everyone, take a look. This is what the left shoulder part of the sample looks like when completed. Up to this point, section 1 of the shoulder part is completed. Next, we will knit section 2 of the shoulder part. Let's look at the finished product. Above all parts of section 1 of the shoulder part, join the front and back pieces and the sleeve shoulder position. Work short rows back and forth. This forms the curve of the neck opening on the front piece. During the knitting process, you need to increase stitches at the sleeve shoulder position. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting method. First, let's knit row 1. This row is on the right side of the fabric. Continue from the ending position of the left shoulder part on the front piece. Start with 1 double stitch. Then, refer to the chart and knit the corresponding stitches. Continue until just before the left side of the circular needle. Stop right before this loop. My sample has been knitted up to this point. Take the last loop and place it onto the straight needle at the left shoulder position. Release this end of the circular needle. Hold this straight needle with your left hand. Knit 1 spo. Note that different sizes require different textures here. The method for knitting this spo differs. For larger sizes, you need a purl texture here. Here you will knit a spo in the purl stitch. First, switch the position of the first 2 loops on the left needle. Then move these 2 stitches to the right needle. Pick up the right loop from the front with the left needle. Release the loops on the right needle. Then return the left loop back onto the left needle. Now the 2 loops have been moved. Insert the right needle into these 2 loops. Knit 1 purl stitch. This completes the spo in the purl stitch. For my sample, I'm demonstrating with a smaller size. You can directly knit the K2 tog in the knit stitch. Then place a stitch marker on the right needle to mark it. Next, at this sleeve cap position, continue with the brioche stitch pattern. The first stitch is a lifted stitch texture. At the same time, pick up these 2 strands and knit 1 stitch. The second stitch has a purl texture. Knit 1 purl stitch. Continue alternating 1 knit stitch and 1 purl stitch. Until you reach the last loop on this short needle. Now you've reached this point. Take the last loop. Transfer it to the circular needle on the left side. Then release the short needle. Place a marker on the right knitting needle to mark. Proceed with knitting using these two circular needles. First, refer to the chart. Knit 1 stitch with a K2 tog to match the texture. For the larger size, knit a K2 tog in the purl stitch. Place the yarn tail above the right knitting needle. Then insert the hook under the 2 stitches on the left side. And knit them together as one purl stitch. The K2 tog in the purl stitch is now complete. For the smaller size, knit a K2 tog in the knit stitch. Continue to refer to the chart and knit the corresponding stitches. Keep knitting until you reach the left side of this circular needle, just before the last loop. You have now reached this position. Transfer the last loop to the short needle on the left shoulder seam. Then, refer to the chart to knit the corresponding SPO. Let me demonstrate the SPO in the purl stitch again. Move the first 2 loops from the left needle to the right needle. Pick up the loop on the right side, with the left needle from the front. Slip the loops off the right needle. Return the left loop back onto the left needle. Insert the right needle into these 2 loops. And knit 1 purl stitch. The SPO in the purl stitch is now complete. For the smaller size, you still knit a SPO in the knit stitch here. In my sample, the stitches are done randomly. Then place a marker on the right needle. Continue knitting the brioche stitch pattern downwards, until you reach the last loop on the left side of this short needle. You are now at this position. Transfer the last loop to the circular needle on the left side. Then place a marker on the right needle to mark this position. Continue knitting downwards with this circular needle. Refer to the chart. For the larger size, you need to knit a K2 tog in the purl stitch here. Pick up the next 2 stitches on the left side with the right needle. Knit 1 purl stitch. The K2 tog in the purl stitch is now complete. For the smaller size, you should knit a K2 tog in the knit stitch here. Continue referring to the chart as you knit downwards. Follow the corresponding stitch pattern until you reach the left side. Just before this double stitch, you are now at this position. Continue knitting the corresponding number of stitches while referring to the chart. The first row is now complete, and it connects all parts of the shoulder section. Move the stitch marker. Place it at the corresponding position on the front piece, on the chain below the right needle. Continue to work row 2, with the wrong side of the piece facing you. Start with 1 double stitch. Then follow the chart to knit the corresponding stitch pattern until you reach just before the stitch marker position. Now you've reached this point. Move the stitch marker. Work the brioche stitch pattern at the sleeve shoulder position. Until just before the stitch marker on the left side. Now you've reached this point again. At the corresponding position on the back piece, follow the chart to knit the corresponding stitch pattern, or match the texture for knitting. Pay attention, if the first stitch needs to be a purl stitch, then you need to place the yarn tail above the right needle first. Continue knitting. Keep working the corresponding pattern downwards, until just before the stitch marker on the left side. Once completed, continue at this sleeve shoulder position, working the brioche stitch pattern until just before the stitch marker on the left side. Now you've reached this point. Continue to follow the chart to knit the corresponding stitch pattern, or match the texture for knitting. After completing this double stitch, continue knitting the corresponding number of stitches. This completes the second row. Move down to the remaining part of the shoulder section in the back. On both sides of the yarn loop reserved in the middle of the front piece, continue using the German short row method to knit back and forth. During the knitting process, at the positions of the front and back pieces, follow the chart to knit the corresponding pattern. Knit the brioche stitch pattern at the left and right shoulder positions, and increase stitches at the corresponding positions. If you can't keep track of the exact row numbers for the increased positions, you can refer to the pattern positions on the front and back pieces for knitting. All the stitch techniques needed have been demonstrated before. Please refer to the previous demonstrations. Follow the chart to complete them. After completing, fasten off the yarn normally. Now, everyone, this is what the sample looks like after completing the shoulder section of section 2.